targets on the battlefield. And if this was real, everyone would be looking at them. Used to say that during the Cold War scene in the background, the Avery in this format here is just carrying a pipe to sea. But its primary job on the battlefield was mindful. Crews in service would be operating these. And here we have the guys that are kind of professional hobbyists operating them, giving us demonstrations. So the chief, those in the VIP stands can look down and see there. And that gap has been dug out and it's found the height of the person. The person is walking with his gap. And that's the bridge put in. And what you'll see now is the AvLab kind of extracting the launch mechanism and moving out there. It is a really complicated process, a really delicate from the bridge. A really difficult one to do. And then requires 2 armoured engineer assets to get through it there. So the AvLab is disconnected from the bridge and it's moving back now, and that'll then give room for the Avery to go forwards and address the second obstacle. But a lot of these vehicles, the sites are not what they used to be, so the crew is on batten there. Second CBRT coming in here in his baddest camouflage, and we're going to cross the obstacle there and provide that intimate protection on the far bank. Approaching there, and half the trick is getting onto that bridge in a slow and considered manner. If you hit the bridge and hit the toes on the home bank, you start shoving the bridge. And one of the things that can happen, sport, and if this was real, it would be at night, under armour, battened down whilst getting shot at. Used to hide these positions to stop the enemy, to stop the enemy from holding on. So really that concludes the demonstration there, and we're going to highlight how special it is.
They're what they call 35mm Oerlikon cannons, and they can put a huge amount of ammunition into the side very quickly. Taking down a jet that's coming in. NATO realised that there is no point having West Germany with all those young people sitting there not contributing to NATO. So they took the painful choice, they invited back some Wehrmacht generals from World War II, and they helped set up the new modern Bundeswehr, which was the West German army. And the German designers, and amazingly that included for the Leopard 1, that included Ferdinand Porsche of World War II phase, in this kind of guns versus armour race. Guns always win in the end. So let's do it. Other countries that had used the British Centurion tank, when they were coming to the end of their service line, onto Leopard rather than a British replacement. So Canada, Netherlands, lots of other countries. And that's why you'll see lots of different variations between each country. Quite often had a slightly different criteria. They kept on building on the Leopard 1 and moved on to the Leopard 2. The mobility of the tank was still one of the fastest tanks going. Very quickly as it's coming in. Those rounds come out the end of those barrels about 1,500 metres a second they're travelling, so that really does travel distance. So they're aiming at incoming planes about 5.5 kilometres away. When they did a press release, they spelt it wrong on the press release, and everyone loved the name Pruffle. It shouldn't have been that at all, and that name Stick. or rather it's stuck for the Dutch army, and they've ended up calling it the Prussian ever since. So the Leopard 1 tank story, as I mentioned, they were also in service with Canada, and it's an interesting one as well because a number of countries, the Netherlands had Leopard 1s and then Leopard 2s, Canada had Leopard 1s. They thought the age of the tank had really come to an end in the early 2000s, so they disposed of their Leopard 1 tanks. At the same time, the Dutch army and undoubtedly will be seeing armour and drones working in harmony as they try and get that combination together to get the best from both weapon types. Because again, if they can hold ground, it's all very well doing things to distance with computers. Of your tank, because it might flip you over, obviously no good at all to anyone. So the M60 has got a V-shape or boat-shaped hull, so that the blast will be vented up the sides of the vehicle, and you might lose a couple of road wheels, but the crew is still safe inside. It's called the pattern tank series. So we ended up with the Americans having to rebuild a lot of their tanks, and they also realised that some of them weren't really up to it. So their earlier M47 tanks, they were in service a very short space of time, and then they handed them on to other countries whilst they developed what they thought was going to be a better tank of their own. Now we've got driving around at the moment, there's an M60 tank there. This is the sort of end of this pattern. Again, the Soviets were very sensible when they were putting vehicle fleets together. They might be crude, but they realised it's so much easier in a family of vehicles, so all the crews, spare parts, it's commonality of parts. And the MPLB was used for bases of missile carriers, of armoured personnel carriers. Of the 2S1 they put artillery on the top of it, and we're seeing a missile carrier driving around showing how ubiquitous that space vehicle really was. So the M60s, you can hear that very distinctive engine noise in the back. The Americans put a Continental diesel engine in the rear, and that engine turned out